Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Zenji and today we're going to be playing Timberborn. Currently we're in episode 1 in our 1.0 patch playthrough. And hey, hope you're all doing well. Alright, I know that we are busy wrapping up some of our older series that are pre 1.0, but glad to be back and glad to get into this new patch and experiment with all the lovely new additions such as the automations and sort of depth sensors and relays. So I'm quite keen to get into that and experiment with those going forward. Alright, what we are going to do is start a new game. We are going to select the Iron Teeth. Then we are going to go to custom maps and select Atlantis Refloated. So we are calling this series Atlantis Rising, as we're going to be raising Atlantis from the depths of despair. With that being said, we are going to start a new series, select next, and of course select hard mode. And with one caveat though, we are changing the cycles without badtides to 6. I have found that in my playtests that 6 cycles gives you enough time to prepare for the oncoming calamities. But with all that being said, let's get started. Okay, we've loaded in and we are going to be calling our settlement Atlantis Rising. I think I've spelled that right. Yeah, there we go. Alright, so if you don't know, this is a custom map. I did search the Steam workshop for this. I don't know it offhand. I think it's just called Atlantis Rising, but you might have to find who developed it on there. Okay, there's a lot to take in. This map is massive. And of course we have this, centric spiral that goes around with connecting points that go into the center. As you can see, there's a lot of metal, but also a lot of intricate little systems. So we have like bridges over here with, blockages that you can demolish. And some of them are obviously disconnected and or destroyed. So a lot going on. And we're obviously going to go through a lot of the details of this map as we go through the playthrough, but I just wanted to showcase a few odds and ends before we get started. If you're looking on this side, you'll see there's a whole bunch of random stuff here. If we go down a few levels, we'll start to see, for example, there's a lot of unstable cores by the water source which we have access to here. So bad things are going to happen in the future, and obviously we have a few, I think, bad water sources on this end. As you can see, there's lots of science down here, and I think there's a seep there. The whole map is surrounded by more water sources, so this is a problem. If you go too deep, I think you will have an issue with that. So that goes right around, and of course it can cause quite a bit of problems. There's lots of little hidden things in this map, and I think what we'll do is when we get to them, we'll show them off. I don't want to spoil anything just here in the first episode. And yeah, so what I am going to do is just do a little, I think, time lapse of the setup. I think works well, and just so that we can get started on the right footing. All right, we've set up our settlement. So this is the primary phase in our build out, and I want to break it down bit by bit. So over here we have a sort of farm area which we are going to expand a bit later on. We have this sort of, I think, a gully where some water can get collected, so we are going to take advantage of that and have a dam installed here to try and block this up a bit. This is going to be vital for later down the line, I believe. Then we do have a giant chunk of forest area over here. This is going to be our main source of wood at a later stage with the forester. We have some water collection and storage on this end, some science, our breeding pods, our berry collection, and then a tiny industrial zone which will be moved later on. And we're going to have to find a spot for that, but this space gets very cramped very quickly and everything is quite vertical, so it does need to be moved eventually. Right, then we do have another farm area on the left hand side, so we are going to try and take advantage of this arable zone on this left hand side, and then we are going to be adding in some storage over here. Again, very limited space. And then we do have an aquifer, so we might do this a bit later on during the playthrough where we sort of utilize this aquifer, but I'm not too sure it'll work because it will require quite a lot of levies over here to sort of make use of that. So we'll see how that goes. And then as you can see, the water spawn point is over here, and it sort of goes around, down, and then it sort of, you know, goes through into these onto these bridges, and then, you know, some of them do just fall off into this sort of central crater. So this is a layer 1, 2, and then I think the third one is just above that. It does sort of get spread out amongst all these points, and then it does dilute into this section over here with this bad water source, which comes full circle and it gets delivered over here. So lots going on. I mean, this map is gigantic. There's lots of hidden secrets, which is quite cool. I really do enjoy the fact that you find things out as obviously you're playing through, but it's quite interesting using these new mechanics. It's great. With great detail. Alright, so with all that being said, what we are going to do is sort of just, of course, change our hours to 20 hours and speed things up. We have set everything to have certain priorities so that we are focusing on certain buildings first. Of course, what we can do then is make sure that workplaces have certain individuals in them at all times. What I do like to do is make sure that we have at least one very high priority worker in certain buildings. So for example, berry gathering, wood cutting, deep water pump, etc. And especially farmers. They are our lifeblood in this game. Right, with the first day coming to an end, we have built a few of our starting buildings, from the deep water pumps to obviously our lumberjack flags, a bit of storage, and we do have our gathering flags, a medium warehouse for berries, and then our one farmhouse is already built. So the next few days are going to be quite essential before the first bad tide arrives. And just to reiterate, we are playing on very hard mode. Well, there's our first drought. So it only took 3 days before we got the notification. So on day 6 in cycle 1, we will get our first drought. So we are going to have to try and push these water storages the limit. And of course, hopefully get enough science to start the forester build. Now to build the forester, of course, you do need planks. We'll have to make sure that our power wheel and our industrial mill is built in time. And then, of course, there is a finite amount of wood on the map, so we have to obviously make sure we get to certain locations to get the wood. Of course, here is one giant option over here on the right, but then as you follow the circular sort of outer ring of Atlantis here, you'll see there's lots of trees, so we have to find ways to get to these points. Now, if you click on the pathing structure, you'll see that it's very red. Unfortunately, that's just something we have to deal with in the early game, and then at a later stage we are going to be using the tubeways. Right, we are approaching the end of day 6 in cycle 1, and the bad tide, of course, is about to begin. So yeah, we're going to obviously switch out some workers. So for now, we are going to be doing things quite in a manual way until we can get the automation up. But automation does require a lot of gears, planks, and metal. The things we're going to be experimenting probably in part 2 or episode 2 or 3, just to get the fundamentals done, you know. So a lot of resource gathering. And hey, the drought has started. Alright, that being said, we are going to turn off a few buildings, make sure we obviously optimize ourselves as much as possible. Right, we've got the forester installed. Obviously, we're going to be setting this to workplace, very high priority, and construction to high priority too. And we are going to be planting a whole bunch of berries on this left-hand side to keep everything nice and uniform. So, have to delete these quickly. Right, and then on this right-hand side, we are going to be planting oak trees. And over time, we'll have to fill in the gaps where we see some. So over here, here. And we will be adding in pine trees on this end. These are a bit faster growing. Should see more of them as progresses. Alright, cycle 1, day 9, and we have our first lumber mill installed. We're going to start producing planks, which is going to in turn help us build the forester. Of course, what we are going to do next is start our staircase build, where we are trying to find more wood. So in this game, wood is just as important as water or food, as it allows you to get more water and food and obviously expand your population. So we are trying to get up here, where we are going to, of course, get some more wood, and eventually we'll have another forest up here somewhere. But the main goal is to get over here. So over here we have a secret cabin. If we go down level 9ish, you'll see that there is a reserve tank reservoir over here, and these are like custom models. I'm not sure if they're new to the game, but they look very different from the normal ones we're used to. So yeah, this is here inside a little cabin with a walkway. It sort of goes from the bottom all the way out, of course, up here. So what we want to try to do is get to this point. To do that, we will need obviously a lot of planks, and then a lot of time to get those built out and then get to this point. All right, so yeah, we have a lot of thermal energy over here. So these are the thermo fields, and if we go to power, see they generate up to 400 power, and they do take quite a lot of wood and planks to build. So the only problem is that we have them sort of quite close, but we cannot access them power-wise unless we put our production field or production zones down here, which I guess could make sense in the long run. But to get it out, we'll have to obviously dynamite things. So that is something to consider for future planning. All right, with that all being said, we are going to try connect everything. And to do that, we need to find a way to get here. So the best bet is to obviously build some stairs. And then when we do unlock the landscaping levy, we're going to put that over here because it is one of the cheapest options at 12 wood. And then we can sort of access all this extra water. These are all filled with water, so that's 600, that's 1200 water, a whole bunch of trees. So that is quite cool. All right, we are just going to connect everything while we wait for that to eventually get built. So if you didn't know, there is a new building. It's called the gate. So if we had to put a gateway on something, we could essentially block a pathway from being accessed. And this is quite useful when you want to either save resources for dire times, or you want to stop your beavers from accessing a certain part of the map that is overflooded with bad water, etc. That's something to consider. Cycle 1, day 12, and we're about to come out of the drought season. Now, it is quite important to make sure that we have enough resources to get us through. We've basically run out of food and water. So we do need to, of course, pause a whole bunch of buildings and make sure that we prioritize food development. And that means switching and manipulating some of the job specs for the rest of our workers. As you can see, we still need another one plank, as we have 4 planks, so we can turn these guys off. And let's just focus on getting some food into our system. So we are going to make sure everyone's set to planting. It can help us get through the next phase. And then we are going to prioritize blueberries for the forester. Make sure that gets selected first. And then I guess we can keep science going. Then I guess having another deep water pump wouldn't hurt us. What we can do is then now increase the small tank storage. But once we get across and down to the zone, we're going to be very happy and be able to, of course, have lots of water available to us. We're getting a few starved to death notifications, so this is definitely going to be a struggle. And if we do not get some food very shortly, we might have a problem. And what we are going to do is, of course, set these farmers over here to harvest only so that we can get some kohlrabi in, prevent more starvation. So we might see a few starved to death notifications, but that is how tight this game can be with managing resources. We'll see over the next couple of days to see how many of our beavers perished. Right, another drought is on its way, so in 3 days. Did manage to make it to day 6 in cycle 2, so we had an extra 3 days of no drought. And we are recovering our food shortage. It's quite nice to see. Alright, so we have enough science now to build out our first dam system. Now what we are going to be doing is selecting a certain spot here. So what we want to do is first unlock the levee, like so. And then what we want to do is try line it up with a road. We don't have to do too much. I guess building, even though this is quite a lot. So it's going to look like something like that, where we have a whole bunch of levees and then a few dams on top to sort of let some water out. And what this is pretty much going to allow us to do is dam up the water so that we can have a collection point here, more collection points later down the line, perhaps over here. Then what we can do, of course, then is keep a lot of this area alive and well with fresh water. Our second drought has come. And hey, we do have enough food, I think, to survive. We're sitting at about 210 units of water and about 75 plus the rest of this food over here. It's going to, oh, sorry, 87. It's going to be quite a lot of food, I think, to last 6 days, so we should be fine. Of course, we are going to be doing a lot of pausing and unpausing and making sure that we can sort of keep our beaver population alive. We are doing is setting a lot of the farmhouses to collection only, so harvesting only, make sure that we gather all the resources before the drought kills them. Right, we're coming to the end of the drought period and we are making quite good headway down here to gain access to our secret bat cave. And yeah, we are about a couple levees and one staircase away from accessing all this fresh, delicious water. And hopefully our new industrial zone, which will be quite cool. And yeah, we are building out a forest over here with some storage. So this is going to be a long-term solution for our wood requirements. Then over here, looking at our first dam wall, almost complete. So by the next drought, we should have at least some water stored up here, which will be quite nice. All right, with that, cycle 3 begins. And of course, we are going to unpause all of our water collectors, our forester, 2 farmhouses, which one is already unpaused. And of course, that means you're going to lose a few workers or builders. It's always important to have at least one person in the science building, as there is so much science required for these automation tools. I mean, the main one we need is the contamination sensor, which we only get to a bit later after getting gears and the smelting factory, which we still have to get to, and the closest option we have is over here. So that is going to be a challenge. Right, the first dam wall section is being built. Hey, we almost have access to our new set of water. So you're going to see this number jump up dramatically. There we go, 1.4k water. So we just have to have a road network connected to have access to this. So it might be a good idea to be a little tricksy and we delete some pathways to water, right? That way, now if we are desperate for water, we can just quickly build a road and there voila, we have water. Bit of an emergency fund situation. Right, what we are going to do is, of course, cut some trees here. This is free wood. We're going to take that. And I guess the next step is to start building out an industrial zone. I'm just wondering how that would work because it's still going to take us a while to get there. And speed in this game is everything. So we've got to be very careful not to make our transport routes too strenuous and long. For now, things are looking up. Well, another drought is approaching. Cycle 3, day 5. And we have 3 days until the next drought approaches us. But we do have access to some extra wood down here. Our water storage is doing fantastic. I've got 810 and 851 with these deep water pumps full, which is good to see. We are going to pause a couple of those, try to free up some workers. And the next step is, of course, to get the fermenter up and running. This will allow us to use our cassavas, which we are storing quite a lot of. And then we are building out a second barracks to try make our beavers nice and happy. As you can see, bottom left, we have our first unstable core. Now, take a second and guess where this unstable core is. Give you 5 seconds. And it's right here. So for some reason, this actually blows up. And I have no idea why, but it basically creates another cavern. Now this could be so that you can connect these 2 zones through like dynamite. I would say, where's this thing? Tunnels. So maybe that's something we consider in the future. So we just tunnel and create a underground industrial zone, which would be quite cool actually. So we'll consider that. But hey, there is the first unstable core. I'm not going to spoil a couple others that I know of, but after that point I have no idea where and how long it takes for these things to go off. And yeah, so we'll have to wait and see and find out together. Alright, cycle 3, day 8, and it's an 8-day drought, so we are going to be quite thirsty. Luckily, we did get a few extra water containers. But hey, let's see how well we can do. Alright, we have about 1 day left in the drought in cycle 3, and we are currently in day 15. And hey, we are about to finish the second layer of our first dam section, so we have about 3 to 4 more levees to complete. And from then onwards, we will be doing the third layer of this dam, so that means up to this point, it's levees, and then we have 4 dams, which do cost a little bit more wood. That does allow us to control the water flow a little bit. And then over here, we have decided to add in a hauling post to try and ease the carrying capacity of our workers. A builder's hut to try and improve the speed at which buildings are built and make things a bit more efficient. And then eventually we are going to be adding in another farmhouse over here to try maximize our yields. And then from then onwards, we'll wait and see. I do have a plan for expanding our, I guess, bad tide diversion system, but I'll get into that later because it is a little complicated. Cycle 4, day 1, and the bad tide, the drought is over. Alright, cycle 4, day 5, and another drought is approaching, so in 3 days we'll have another one, and this is the 4th drought we're experiencing. Hey, we have finished the second layer of our first dam system. We are working on the 3rd layer, which is going to, of course, seal everything up here quite nicely. And as you can see, the water does rise quite a bit. So we lose this section over here, but we do gain more fertile land over here and over here. It's good to see. And yeah, we are progressing quite nicely. Food is doing all right, but I do know some bad times are coming. So we definitely need to overproduce now in the early game, and then so it takes us through those hard and rough times. But yeah. But the drought is about to begin, but what we have done is we've started to clear out a bit of land over here. And what we are going to be doing is adding a gear workshop. We'll go there. And then next to it, we'll be having a smelter. That'll be going over there. These are very important because what we are going to be doing is on the landscaping tab, we're going to be adding in these fill valves. Now these fill valves pretty much replace the sluice gates, but also have to have interactions with automation to sort of take away the the niceties of having a sluice gate that automatically did these things. Now we have to get a system that does it for us. Now it is a little complicated, but I promise you it does make life a little easier, even though it was pretty simple to begin with. So I'm kind of on the fence, to be honest, but I still think it is very cool to add new ways to play the game, which is quite fun. We will get into that at a later stage though. Alright, the drought is about to begin, so what we are going to do, of course, is turn off some of these water pumpers, try put some of these beavers into different positions, and of course make sure that we start utilizing the cassavas we've been harvesting for quite a few days now. Right. And there we go. The drought has started. So it's an 8-day drought, so we should be fine. I think we will be good to go. Alright, our first unstable core is about to blow up. There we go. So if we want to extend the bat cave, I think this might be the best way to do it. As you can see, it just will take probably maybe 15 blocks worth of tunnels, which is about 15 extract. Okay, so 30 planks. That's not too bad. Definitely something we will consider at a later stage, but for now we are, of course, going to keep things above ground. Right, we are approaching the end of the drought, so cycle 4, day 14. We have about one day left, and we're doing pretty good on food, although I'm quite worried that this just gets out of control very quickly, so we're just going to overproduce, and hopefully things will be all right. Okay, so that means, of course, storing as many cassavas, blueberries, and then fermented cassavas as possible. The best way to do that is, of course, have large amounts of cassava stored up, In case of emergency, we can just break open the fermenter. For now, we are just collecting as many berries as possible. We have 3 now full warehouses of berries, almost 600 berries. And then what we are doing is we're starting to expand our network. So we're building out a staircase here and over here. And we are trying to, sorry, over there. We are trying to access this ruins over here for some metal. And then all the way over this side, we are harvesting as much wood as we can because we're struggling to find it on the map. And it does take a while for oak trees to grow, of course, as everyone knows. Yeah, we are sort of stabilized at the moment, but this is a trying time, so we have about 1 more cycle left until the bad tides start. We haven't done anything about that yet, so holding thumbs. Alright, I think it's time we start planning out our diversion system. Mouthful. And yeah, so what we are going to do is unlock the fill valve. Now this is going to be quite handy for redirecting the flow of good and bad water. We are going to do 4 fill valves over here. We are going to unlock that. And then we are going to do some levees left and right of that. And what I would like to do is, instead of going through this walkway, is to only build through pathing up here. So we're avoiding touching this water at all costs. Tell you why, I've noticed that beavers tend to die when you put them through bad water. So let's avoid that, guys. And I know I'm guilty of this quite a lot. So I will do my best to avoid such things. But hey, this is the plan. This is what I'm thinking will work quite well. The idea is to, of course, allow good water through the system. And then over here, we're going to eject all the other bad water down this way. Now, it will flood this area with bad water. And at a later stage, we might want to, I guess, direct it so it goes off map. Of course, for now, we're just going to, yeah, let that get off map and not really focus too much on it. Alright. Alright, the next drought is about to begin. So, of course, what we are going to do is turn off some of these water pumpers. Try and make sure that we're prepared and ready for that. And then we'll keep the forester on just for a little while longer. And then what we are going to do is try to focus on getting some planks installed. But hey, our dam system is 100% complete. So that is looking quite fantastic. Right, so we have 2 options here. So either we can focus on building the bad tide system to block everything out, or hear me out now, we build a secondary dam system over here, which allow us, or maybe over here, which will allow us to store some more water, and then of course have a arable zone where we can farm up more goodies. Now I'm on the fence because I know how bad the bad tides can get, so we might want to focus on this, but we still need so many things to get that going. And one of them is definitely gears and smelters and science. As automation cost us upwards of about 500 science just to get that going. Plus all the metal required, plus all the gears. A lot. And our next bad tide is probably going to happen in a cycle or 2. So yeah, we've got a lot to do and not much time to do it. Alright, we're approaching the end of our 5th drought in cycle 5 day 13. And hey, would you look at that? Our gate is complete. I'm going to see how this looks. We close it now. Beavers cannot walk through there, which is quite cool. Because we're definitely going to have a bad tide and it's going to flow through the system. And of course, we don't want any beavers getting sick. So this is a great way to, of course, close off this section. But now we are going to keep it open, which, as you can see, it sort of highlights the walkways and pathways. It's quite cool. So we are going to leave it open so our beavers can get a nice dip when they do go all the way around and collect scrap metal from these ruins. Alright, we're coming to the end of the drought, so we are going to, of course, unpause a lot of these water pumpers. Forester over here, a farmhouse over here is, of course, already paused. We might need to unpause or pause a few other worker buildings to try make room for our prioritized buildings. For now, we are going to not receive much water over here, unfortunately. It's part of the plan to protect our beavers. So we might lose a bit of food in this section over here as we are preparing for the first bad tide. Oh, I think I was wrong. So the water is now overflowing here. We seem to have hit a little curve. And this is part of the plan, by the way. And this is why the fill valve is on this section here. That we can, of course, incorporate some water into this zone. But the bad side is that we haven't built out a diversion system over here just yet. See, the map creator encourages that, I guess, with this. So we took that to heart, and we are going to, of course, follow up. And hopefully these beavers can finish off this, and then we can build some levees, like so. Where we can, of course, finish this up. I think there could be a pathing issue, so let's create some pathing. I think they'll be able to reach those now. Otherwise, we're just going to have to deal with a little bit of flooding on this end, which does mean we're going to lose some crops this round. But good news, we are doing quite well with berries. And we do have about almost 400 worth of unprocessed cassava. Fantastic to see. Alright, I think we lucked out a bit. We do have a drought approaching, so this is quite nice. Sorry, this is our 7th drought, not our 6th drought. So we should be good to go here. That give us a bit more extra time to, of course, build a diversion system. As you can see, this is not looking good. Alright, we have lots to do. The drought has started, and it's not a bad drought period. It's only 8 days long, so not terrible. Of course, we have lots of goodies that have not been collected yet. So all these oak trees, all these pine trees, all of the blueberries over here. We have cassava sitting fully grown. We're having some issues collecting goods. Now, our population is only sitting at 20. I do know if we start adding more breeding pods, it's going to obviously fix the problem and obviously create more jobs. But then it will also create more mouths to feed. But yeah, we're under the gun because we need to basically build this diversion system in before the end of this drought and start on basically getting this system set up, plus destroying all of these thorns and blockages so that the bad tide can be diverted. Also with a relay, that's important, and a contamination sensor. But we do need 2 contamination sensors. I'll tell you why a bit later. For now, this is the plan. Alright, so that is done. Now we can, of course, mega high prioritize those. Start building out this fill valve. And I guess the rest of these too. This is going to be very important to get all that done. So those are the main buildings we need done and worked on. And then we do have a smelter, which is now operational, but we do not have a worker available. So we're going to have to figure out how to get that going. Alright, cycle 7 begins and the drought has ended. Alright, we're making good headway over here. We are starting to build out these levee systems. This is going to protect us. And then what we are going to be doing is then building out these systems. Now, it might not be a perfect automatic system just yet, but it might do a good enough job to keep us alive if the bad tide arrives in the next few days. So we'll see how that goes. Otherwise, we are expanding our storage over here. So we're building a nice, neat little system where the beavers can obviously come up these stairs and build, well, deposit some of their blueberries and cassavas, which is quite nice. And we are seeing an influx of oak trees coming to, I guess, full maturity over here. So we are taking advantage of that. As you can see, our logs have skyrocketed to over 150. Then we are struggling a bit with water. So, of course, we are going to unpause the deep water pumps and make sure that we're collecting as much water as possible. And then we are building out a medium storage warehouse for gears as we are locked at the moment. But what we can do, I don't know if we have enough science. We do actually. All right, so let's build a medium or a couple medium storage tanks for water. Of course, you know how the drill goes. We will set this to just medium high priority. Hopefully get one in as soon as possible. And then if we do struggle, we can always go to the bat cave and then reconnect these. We might have a problem because there's some wood now that has grown there. I guess that can be a problem. I think the best thing to do is then... You almost have to build pathways and then disconnect them. So, for example, if I had to cut these trees, we'll put you on just so that you can get these cut, is to actually build out, for example, a gathering flag or a wood lumberjack flag in place of a pathway over here. That way trees cannot overgrow your pathway and cause you to suffocate for under any pressure. Alright, so this is the problem we're trying to fix. This log piece over there. And there it is, the first bad tide. So cycle 7, day 5, and in about 3 days we're going to get first bad tide. Now we are prepared for it. We do have a gateway system to protect us from getting contaminated. We have lots of storage. We're building out a medium tank storage for water. We should probably just do 2 of these. I'm going to actually start converting these to super high priority. Need to make sure that we get these up and running ASAP. And then what we are going to do is go to the bat cave and make sure this guy is on high priority. And pretty much we're going to unmark all these trees. Right, and then just mark these 2. That way we can reconnect these 2 water points and then pretty much save ourselves from getting into a tough situation. Right, there you go. We're now sitting at 1,300 water. It should last us at least 2 bad tides, but we are going to try and prepare for that. And we are working on this system over here to get access to here. And that way we can divert the bad water in a more manual sense. And then at a later stage, we are going to be doing the automation using the relay and the contamination sensors. We still need quite a lot of science for. Our first medium water tank is in, and hey, with that being said, the bad tide has started. As you can see, it is devastating, so it's going to literally kill everything we have at the moment, so not good. Unfortunately, we are going to lose a lot of these berries, but we have closed this gate system. None of our beavers will be getting any contamination. We'll make sure we're not going to cut that tree. We should be good to go. And yeah, we have securely diverted all this bad water over here, and we are working on building out this section so that we can, of course, start taking out these blockages and then really divert the bad water, which is our goal. Oh, there goes all the berries. They're all dying now. Guess we can turn these guys off. Maybe a couple left over here. There's no fresh water left to pump, so of course we're going to leave that settle. Right, it does mean we're going to lose a lot of trees here, but what we can do... Oh, we might have to pause these 2. We do have a stairway down all the way to this side. We're going to, of course, harvest these oak trees. As you can see, the water is flowing very, very fast. I actually wanted to see how fast they were going. So 288 horsepower, and at the top it's 396, which is damn fast. Alright, and of course here in the main section, 94, 150. As you go to a tile down, it should increase. Yeah, not too bad. We're about 1.67 days out of the bad tide, so that's the time remaining. And as you can see, everything is dead. So this is what the bad tide does. It just destroys everything. So we are working on the system to divert it and hopefully keep our population alive during these hard times. But for now, we are just working on getting this system built out, and then building up enough science to unlock our automation side. And then on the other side, we are building out a couple more inventor huts to try to speed up the science gathering process. Now there are bits of relics here and there on the map, but it just doesn't seem right to focus on that right now. For some of the bigger things, we are definitely going to go look for some science, but for now we're just going to focus on manually obtaining that. Badtide has ended. Thank goodness. Wow, that took a while. Hey, life is returning. So of course we are going to unpause a bunch of these guys. Forester, we are focusing on blueberries first. We've got to try get the food production back up and running. What we'll do is we'll prioritize the farmer districts here too. So we'll have to switch off a few extra worker buildings. These builder huts. We'll turn off these guys too. And I think we'll keep the rest on. Yeah, it's going to be a rough time. And we're going to keep... Yeah, we'll turn this guy off and this guy. Still 6 jobs available. So we'll have to wait and see where they're at and try divert them to these primary responsibilities. Alright, no rest for the wicked. Another drought is on its way. So that was only a couple days and it popped up. But we are making good headway, and thank goodness it's not another bad tide. So we should be able to recover at least our berries from this, because it takes about 12 days to grow the berries and then another 12 days to harvest. So looking at a 24-day cycle. So we might just make it for until the next harvest season, which is good to see. And then what we are going to do is obviously have this up and running by then. Because we need a total of about 480 science, so 1 relay required and then 2 contamination sensors. So we should get that very, very shortly. And all we need to do, of course, is just build those 2 out. And yeah, things will be right as rain. And the drought has started. Now this is the longest drought we've received at 18 days. So it's going to take quite a while. And I think we'll be fine regarding water and food. It's just going to be tough to try and maintain that through more and more hard seasons. Best thing to do, of course, is overproduce on any materials and goods so that we can, of course, survive these trying times. We've managed to obtain enough science, and we are going to start with our automation. And we are, of course, going to be building up a relay first. And then the next step is to get a contamination sensor. This is going to be contamination sensor 1. And then we need a contamination sensor 2. Which I guess can go there. Though preferably I would like it a little closer. We'll just actually delete that. Put it up here somewhere. And I guess the best bet would be... Right, so that will take a little bit of a farthing to get to, but it'll be worth it. Right, but we are almost finished with this diversion system, and then of course we are going to be clearing this up, and then what we'll do is either go with platforms to cross it, or just a staircase or 2. And yeah. Well, our beavers are not the brightest bunch, and they seem to have gotten themselves stuck, as of course they love to do, and they're dehydrated for some reason. Alright, we do have a bit of stairs over here, so we hopefully will be able to help them out. I don't know why they will get stuck, or that someone will work on something that can get them stuck. It is a little frustrating. We'll have to wait and see. We might have to actually build some platforms here just to get them to, I guess, get them out of the situation they're in. But hey, it is 8 days left in the drought. I think we'll get the system built in time. We have currently 18 metal blocks. We need 25 total to build out our system over here, and then another 8 for this contamination sensor 2. Unfortunately, these guys are just going to have to stick with it and, of course, be a little stranded for now. And, of course, if we do take this blockage out, I don't know if they just drop to the ground or if they end up going to the next block, which could be a problem. But these two are being worked on. I have to wait and see in this next day if they are going to be... There's 4 beavers there. Oops. Yeah, they're just melded into each other. Alright, we've released... No, we haven't. That's a problem. So this is what happens when you don't prioritize which tiles are worked on first. And of course that's what I did not do. So fortunately these beavers are just going to be stuck. There's no way we can fix it. We'll just have to get them to the other side and then build up a little bit of stairway so they can then get out of the situation they're in. So of course we will set this to a very high priority so they can do that first. And then from here onwards we are going to be building some fill valves. We'll have to do them here though. And then we'll have to wait for these to be finished. So we need someone to build that out, and then we will have our beavers back. Or 4 of these guys. They might be struggling a little bit. Hunger and thirst. Alright. They're out of there now. Okay, so yeah, we need another couple fill valves over here. This last bit of thorns needs to be taken out. Of course, this does injure our beavers. And we only have 2 medical beds, so we might actually end up having to add in just a couple more. It should help us out. Right, and then it's just this last bit of thorns left over. Hey, the second contamination sensor is complete. Now I'm going to wait a bit just to show you once these fill valves are being completed, so that we can properly do it, and I can show you once off how that is done. And yeah, we will get to that in a little bit. Right, while we wait for these last few fill valves to be completed, we still need another 6 metal blocks. So that's going to take a minute or two. What we are going to do is come all the way down over here, just below our first dammed section. We are going to start building out a secondary dam system. Now this one is going to be a little better, and the focus is going to be on providing sort of a long-term storage solution for water and access to arable land up here. So of course that means we are going to have to destroy some road networks just for now, and we will reinstate them at a later stage. Alright, so probably a good zone would be right over here, just because it's past this point and it is 3 blocks high. So this will have to destroy a few things to get that going. I think that's fine. Alright, so we're going to be doing blocks like this. Then we're only going to be doing probably 3 dams over there. Okay, And then of course what we will need to do is do the same on this end. So we are going to be doing 3 high. Now this does seem like a lot of extra work, but it is worth it, trust me. Alright, then we'll do 3 more dams on that side. Now we just need to basically destroy everything else that's not useful over here. And what we can do is... yeah, we need to connect these 2 points, so we'll do this. Pretty much what that means is that we're going to be able to, of course, build out everything here. Do this like this. Obviously gaining access to this metal too, which is quite nice. Alright, so that's all set up there. Now we do need to destroy some pathways here, just so that we can access these zones. And we've got to find a way to get across here. We can go the long way, or we can go the short way. So what we do need to do is first create some new pathways that do not go over the last edge here. These are all fine. Right, so we can delete these 2. And pretty much what we need to do is connect this block over here all the way to this block. And what that will do is allow us to basically create another dammed section. And hopefully we'll be able to, of course, take all these trees out so we can just finish this up. And yeah, we're just going to follow the pathway all the way around and pretty much do something like this. And then we'll have to make some new stairs because these ones are now going to be obsolete. We'll do that, something like that. And we'll just set this to high priority so we can get those done. Medium high priority. Once those are done, we'll delete this pathway and then begin building out the rest of this. It'll be quite nice. And with these dam sections, we'll be able to, of course, create farm zones around it, which means we can then, you know, survive any and all bad tides in the future, which is pretty much the idea. All right, I think we should have these fill valves almost finished by now. Yes, we just need 1 more metal, and there it is. All right, so we're just going to wait for that fill valve to be complete, and of course it's just going to be just in time for the new... sorry, the drought to be over. New cycle to begin, so cycle 9. Right, while that begins, I actually had to make notes because I couldn't figure out like how to consistently build these sensors and automations without trying to write it down or, you know, remember it off by heart. So what I've done is I've created a little system for myself. So I just make notes on what type of automation I would like and then how to implement that. So I do have my note over here. So for advanced water, pretty much all you need is a relay and 2 contamination sensors. So it's contamination sensor 1 and 2. And all you do is you click on the fill valves you want to utilize. So this is my good water fill valve, and I'm going to automate that. And then you connect it to the relay. And you do the same for the fill valve 2. So now both fill valves are connected to the relay, which is now set to OR. Right, so that is relay 1, relay 1. All right, then you are going to go to the contamination sensor 1. Excuse me, we do need to do this one too. This is also going to the relay. Right, and then you need to connect your relay A and B. So A goes to contamination sensor 1, and then B goes to number 2. And now what we should see is when the bad tide kicks in, probably the next cycle, we'll see an automatic shift between opening and closing of these valves. But of course you have to now select on the valves themselves. So I've got the system where good is always target height unlimited. And of course the target height is set to on. So that is on the left hand side. So we'll do the same over here. Now all these are synchronized with each other, which is quite nice. And then we do the opposite for the bad tide. So we then go target height 0 and then on, which is unlimited. Might be a little confusing, but this system works quite well, and I'm pretty happy with it. And I have a few more with some other automation tools, which I'll get into a later stage. But hey, for now, we are going to, of course, wait and see when the bad tide kicks in and how all this works. All right, I haven't really shown off the map in its entirety too much just yet, but we do have a good look at how the good water flows through the map. It sort of collects on this end, and we've got it dammed up here, and we're doing a second version here. What happens is that the good water flows into the central ring. It does connect with some bad water sources that also do the same. Of course, eventually we do want to stop these and either cap them or redirect them somewhere else. And then build out Atlantis in the center over here. Quite cool. And then along the map there is some certain points, which I won't give away just yet, but we are going to expand around, the outer ring of the Atlantis area. There is some secrets that I want to get into, but at a later stage, so I won't give away too much just yet. But for now, we are busy blocking off these sections. So we're going to have a secondary dam section, and we're pretty much going to follow the principle of following the circle around the entire circumference over here. And that way we'll have a fully dammed system with basically unlimited water. And then what we can do is have either fill valves or automations that then basically release water when it is full. But we do have a simplistic dam system which kind of does the same thing and only costs wood. So sometimes the simplest option is the best. But hey, we are looking forward to the next bad tide so we can show off our automated system. Okay, we kind of lucked out and got another drought, so no bad tide at the moment. We obviously cannot test our new system out, unfortunately, but that does give us time to build out a secondary dam system, which we are, I'd say, maybe 5% done with. We still have to build out the bottom layers to at least block the wood off. We have about 3 levees left, and we'll have that sort of slightly finished, so at least we can collect some water. Now what we are going to be doing is, of course, adding in some more water collection points. So what we are going to do, I'll show you what I mean. Pretty much have like 3 of these over here, so we can collect water in this secondary dam section, so we're not going to be taking water out of the main reservoir that's keeping a lot of our farmland nice and healthy. Right, 2.6 days left until the drought. It's day 9. Hey, we didn't manage to get this sealed up in time, although we might do a little. It might be sealed, I guess. We'll have to wait and see. We are losing water quite fast, so yeah. The general idea is, of course, to seal this up, create a secondary reservoir for ourselves to obviously grab water, distribute water to other parts if we need to. And of course, secure future farming zones. Now, this is, I think, one of 3 little water reserves we are going to be building. The next one is going to be sitting at this level. So we already have almost a 3 high section over here. So we've got to fill in a couple gaps. Pretty much do the same thing on this end, so all the way over here. And then what we are going to do is eventually break open these, or just keep it a singular pathway, and basically create a nice reservoir or farmland area over here. And yeah, we're just going to be farming whatever we need, corn, you name it. And what we'll do is then create a nice highway, tubeways across the whole map, so we can just sort of get in and out and to our farmlands without us. Chat, that is the plan at the moment. All right, we've decided to start building out our geothermal engines. We're going to go down into the bat cave, all the way down, pretty much unlock these. There's 2 of them. And of course, that's going to take quite a lot of resources, but we do have quite a lot available to us. So the geothermal engines are, I think it's, yeah, 50 logs and 30 planks each. So that's 60 and 100 logs. We should be fine there. The problem is, how do we get this power to the other side, of the map over here? And the best bet, I would say, is to tunnel. Now, of course, what we can do is find the right line, which is pretty much on level 6, and tunnel through. Now, how do we do that? Well, we have to go to landscaping. And then we, of course, need the tunnel option, which costs 2,000 science. But, of course, we cannot just, get that. We need first dynamite and extract. We need dynamite level 1, and then extract, which is underwater, which is pretty much utilizing the centrifuge, which technically we could build right now. Now we still obviously need science, but then we need deep water pump, which also requires this new machine parts. There's so much to do, which requires this. So we're going to start with that. We're going to find a way to first get what we need, which is probably going to be down here somewhere. So let's figure out a way to secure the zone for deep water, I guess, pumping, and obviously to protect us from any and all bad water that could affect us. All right, so I'm thinking we do it over here somewhere. So of course we got the science, but we need platforms first. And before we start there, we will need to finish what we started on this end. And then what we are going to do is just make sure that the future us can, of course, have access to good water. All right, so obviously a lot going on at the moment, but this is okay. We have more storage being built, more deep water pumps being built, a second reservoir being built, and then future plans, which is deep water bad pumps over here, so that we can get bad water to then utilize in on centrifuge, which then will allow us to get dynamites, and then of course extract, which is produced in the centrifuge, which will then allow us to get the tunnel. That is a 10-step plan at the moment. Alrighty, we have about 1 day left in the drought, and then we have another good tide on its way. And here we have 2 out of 3 of these deep water pumps almost or already come to start working, but we just need to connect the pathway over here. We need a couple double platforms there just to fill in the gaps. And we are building some more water storage nice and close here so that we can get the goods transported quicker to make our lives a lot easier. And then a little down the line here in our second reservoir area, we are slowly starting to build outwards towards the central point where we are going to be storing a lot of this good water. And we've decided to switch things up. So instead of coming this side and then building out some deep water bad pump systems, we are going to go this side and do it over here. And this is going to allow us to obviously utilize the bad water that gets generated over here. And hey, drought is ended and cycle 10 begins. And yeah, this is the idea. We're going to be collecting bad water from these points. That's going to make our lives a lot easier because it is closer. So it just requires a bit of stairs on the side, and then we're all the way at the bottom. And then we are, of course, going to try and block this off. And then either find a way to transport water maybe from up here down into this reservoir to create a nice arable zone. Or we could use the fluid dump to sort of do that for us. But we'll have to wait and see how that all works out. But yeah, we have another deep water pump operational over here, which is fantastic. Yay, it's the bad tide. I know most people wouldn't be saying that, but I am quite thrilled because I can show off my automation. In 3 days, we are going to see some bad water flow through. And we have connected some of these deep water pumps. Now we have a third one operational any second now. And then we are busy building out these 2 medium tanks for more water storage. Hopefully we can fill these up within 3 days. I don't know if it's possible, but it would be fantastic to obviously get that to that point. And getting these up will also be fantastic. So hopefully with all this extra bit of work, we should be able to fill these up and survive throughout any and all bad tides, which will be fantastic. All right, we are seeing a bit of overflow here, which is quite cool. This actually makes me think we could possibly do, seems to be going through here as well. We could do a system where we have, I have to turn the water off for a second, a sluice gate, sorry, no sluice gate, a fill gate, where we could have a sensor, a depth sensor, so if it goes over, it can just sort of release and then flow into this catchment area, which is exactly what we want for farming. Let's do that. All right, so what we are going to do is then demolish this block over here and then create a fill valve. We're going to landscaping, fill valve, that up. We're going to connect the paths. I think we have one block here that's not connected. Yeah. So this is something we're going to have to fix, because we cannot traverse this area unless we take out this block. I don't think it's possible. Anyway, what we can do is build a depth sensor. Now we do have the science for it, although it might not be 100% required at the moment. We're looking for a spot that can capture the depth fully. Most likely be over here. What we can do is just do like a, it might be a waste of resources, but we are just going to have fun with it. Depth sensor like so. And that way we can basically measure the depth sensor to then trigger this fill valve to then open up and release some good water. You could just have a dam to automatically do it, but of course we want to try and automate everything we do this playthrough. Right, of course we will need a relay to make sure this works. And it cannot be covered in water. That's the only caveat over here. We'll have to pick a spot that can be accessible and switched on and off. It's either relay or lever. Enemy sends a control signal. Great. Okay. I think we'll do... Alright, so as you can see, while we're talking about it, contamination sensor has lit up, and then this one has yet to. But you'll see, as soon as this bad water touches the zone, it's going to light up. Oh, there we go. And now it's closed, obviously, this these fill valves, and now redirecting the bad water. That's exactly what we wanted. And pretty happy with that and how that's working. Fully automated system. I'm pretty stoked. Right, we've discovered a slight issue with our automated system. It seems to be dumping way too much bad water on this end. So as you can see, it does divert over here, but it really does divert over here. So basically this whole plane gets flooded and we end up with a massive problem for future expansion. And that is just because of the bad tides. So during droughts, it's not a problem, but during bad tides, it really is. Now, I don't know if you noticed, but the entire map is surrounded by these water sources. This does prevent water from going over the edge. Normally, water would just float off, but it's not. It's not doing that at all. So I don't know why the interaction is stopping it, but pretty much we need to then manually redirect it this way, because this is now available for us to obviously push water over this edge. So what I was thinking is that we now shift from having a lower tier system like this. So this is on level 1 from the ground up. So basically what we are going to do is shift it so that we're about this height. So that's too high, 2 blocks high, just so that we can prevent our workers from being contaminated, because I did try an automated system, but I was thinking this is just a waste of time. Let's just build properly, divert any future problems we may have just off the map directly. So that's what we're going to do. Does mean we're going to have to build out some more levees, which is not a brain smash. But we'll do that over here. And yeah, it's pretty simple. We just do this. Then what we'll do on top of this is just build out some platforms and then have bad water pumps available to obviously grab water from that point. Then what we'll need to do is destroy these blockages so that we can place maybe dams or it'll depend. We'll have to wait and see, but let's set it up so long so that we can at least control the zone and prevent any basically map-wide flooding of bad water. As you can see, it's just everywhere. It's circumnavigated the globe at this point, so I avoid that in future. Right, so to do that, we'll need a few things. Firstly, we'll delete this, and pretty much put in a platform. Right, this will allow us to pretty much walk to the section we want to build. Be over here, and then do this. Right, yeah. Does mean we're going to have to destroy all our hard work over here. But not to worry, we are going to be replacing these. So platform. These are too high. We need to. I would say that's good enough. I think 3 is more than enough. And then we'll still keep these 2 here just because we do need some storage. All right, that is our future plans. We're going to take away this contamination sensor, this lever. We don't need that anymore. Then our workers can start finishing that up. Cycle 11 begins. Bad tide has ended. And we will hopefully see the map be cleared out of any excess bad water. It might take a season or 2, but yeah, we have lots of bad water to clean out. We have 2 beavers who are employed, so we'll take them out of those 2 scavenger flag huts. And we're obviously going to be building out a few more over here. Build these up like so. Where we can at least access some more metal over the side. Then we are making good headway over here, building out the secondary dam system. And our water is looking fantastic. We're at 1800 out of 27, so what is that? 2/3 pretty much, 60 odd % of our maximum capacity. And then food is looking fantastic too. So we're not really worried too much about survival. More of how we can adapt now and control the map, which is our grand plan. As you can see, the water flows into the central ring. It does flush out the rest of this. So the next step for us is, of course, guaranteeing our water security and then building out the Bat Cave industrial zone, which will be quite fun. And of course, securing our bad water source and extra farm area for excess food storage. And yeah, we'll continue our progression. We have another drought incoming, so cycle 11 day 4, and another drought is on its way. And it's probably going to be a long one, so we're going to be very prepared for this. And of course, the best way to do that is store more food and water and you know what to do with. So that's what we are going to do. Make sure that we're prepped and ready for such events. Also, we're going to high prioritize these 2 storage bins or medium water tanks. And make sure that we're set and ready. Right, and then for food storage, we can, of course, increase storage capabilities. It seems like berries are maxed out again. So we'll switch this over. Let's try to store as much as possible. Right, we're still flooding the map on this end, but we're slowly working our way towards building this out. As you can see, we've made good progress, and we're probably going to take the rest of the next drought season to finish this up. And hopefully we will then have an automated basically waterfall system to then control more farmland over here. Now this will also mean we need to finish up this bad water pump system here to prevent us from flooding the map. As you can see, we've recovered from basically flooding the entire map with bad water. So hopefully now we'll be able to just create infinite farm zones. Alright, the drought has started and it is cycle 11, day 7, and it is a 21-day drought. So the longest we have received. We are prepped and ready though through our water collection and food collection, and we're busy filling up the next 2 medium water tanks up here. So we should be good to go with water storage. Now the next step of course is building out our levee system down here to where we can gather safely bad water. We're going to be using for a whole bunch of different aspects, and then of course finishing up the secondary dam system. So it's all progressing quite nicely. And of course I am very keen on building out the bat cave and making sure that we could tunnel through and create a nice automated system where we can then have our industrial zone indoors and keep all the pollution over here. We're about to come out of a very, very long drought, and of course we are starting to automate a lot of our processes. One of them is a good water pump system. Pretty much what happens is that we don't want the pumps to be running when they're not needed, right? So we want to free up the workforce. What we have created is a relay with the AND function, so depth sensor 4, contamination sensor 3. The contamination sensor 3 will have a 0% threshold to activate, and then the depth sensor will be at about 0.34 meters, which is then enough for, I guess, these to activate. And of course that will then turn them on, but they haven't been built yet, so this is just critical at this point. And then we do have another system we're working on for the depth gauge over here, for the depth sensor over here. So when these turn to a certain point, probably like there, we'll say turn off, and then pretty much these will turn off. And yeah, we'll have a way to free up workers where needed, and of course be able to optimize our layouts where possible. So, cycle 12, day 4, and a bad tide is on its way. And we have automated our second set of water pumpers. We're using a depth sensor gauge at greater than threshold of 0.885. And then a relay on the aura function, which is depth sensor level 3 or number 3. When it gets to a certain point, these will switch off. So for example, if I push this up, it then switches off. So hopefully we'll see this in action probably during this bad tide. We'll see these turn off. And then we have got these guys set up. We're just waiting on... maybe gotta figure this one out. All right, we'll get back to this and let you know how that goes. And we figured it out. Okay, so we're switching to the aura function. So it seems like if it's on a threshold of 0, which is what we want, depth is above 35, these will be on, as you can see. And we can also change the colors, which is quite cool. So I'll make this nice and blue. I'll just do that for all blue or good water related automations, just to make sure the visuals are on point. I guess we can make this red just so that we know, okay, these are bad. Alright, so we should see that when... I'll do this 1, 2. When the contamination level is above 0%, this light will come on, right? And this will turn off. I think this will turn off. Or it will always stay on. I'm actually not too sure. And yeah, these will turn off. So these are all linked to the good water pumps. It's fantastic. So we are slowly automating our system. And of course we do have more flooding because of this excess water, which we are trying to push off the map. As you can see, there's only a few zones around the map that have these exit points. Otherwise, we are closing off the section 2. We do have a few more blocks to be finished off here. And then we're just finishing up, I guess, this one little bit of thorn so we can connect these up. And then we did pause these 3 blocks because our beavers are not very bright and they end up getting stuck at this point, so we'll avoid that. But they can get in and out of this zone. And yeah, we will have a basically a completed second catchment area, which means infinite water. Of course, we can keep doing this all the way around, but it might not be necessary to do it all the way around. We'll see. It does look quite cool having a nice filled up water system. And then, I mean, we could go one step further and fill it up and then have a pump system that basically pumps it back in. Though that might be a bit extra. But hey, bad tide has started. And there we go. So now we have... These guys have not turned off. Maybe... Okay, the depth gauge could be at any point. It's the contamination. So if it's greater than 0, I guess we'll do like that again. Alright, so right there, back on again. Maybe we do not need to include this depth sensor, just a contamination sensor. But just not. And then contamination 3 greater than 0%. And then make this blue. It's a little tricky, guys. I must admit that I don't think you'll get this on the first go, but definitely open up a creative map and mess around a bit. But as you can see, we've figured it out. The sensor is not really needed, unfortunately, so we'll just delete that. But hey, the system works well. Pretty much when there's a bad tide and it detects that there is contamination, this will turn off. And that's fine with us. We do have excess water. What we could do is have a automation for depth flow. Where's this thing? Depth sensor over here. Pretty much have it at a certain point. So, for example, depth gauge is currently over here, and we want to stop gathering water when it hits just above that. So, like maybe like there, and then that could work where we could have a and/or function on that. Is it necessary? I don't know. It might not be. I think we're just overcomplicating things. I'm pretty glad this works. I'm quite keen to see this water drop below a certain point so that we can obviously see how that interacts with our automation. And over here we are finishing up a few extra blocks. Alright, we've successfully completed the second dam system. Now what we are going to do is try to automate it. And of course that means we're going to try connect to this relay over here, or this lever actually. And pretty much we're going to pin this, and then we're going to go call this, well, how do we change the name? There we go. Change it up here. And we're going to go... Good waterfall. And it's going to stay pinned here on the left. And what happens is that when this reaches, I think around there, toggles off when, let's say, toggles off when it's like there, toggles on there. That way we can keep that going. I don't even know if we needed this. And I guess this will just turn on so we know what's this level. Target on is at 2 meters, so we'll set this to 2 meters. Now it's a visual cue to obviously tell us that, okay, this is now closed. And, oh, wait, is that correct? This is 2 meters for this, but 2 meters for this is different, so different height perspectives. Anyway, it should automate, so we'll have to wait and see until the bad tide, you know, when this bad tide finishes, we'll see if that works. Then we have an automation over here. We're about half a meter away from seeing how this works and if it does turn off everything, which I think it will. And then back down here, this automation hasn't started just yet, but we are busy building out a redirect for our bad water system so that we can, of course, get rid of all this extra bad water. And then this system is working now, so deep water pumps will turn off when bad tide is detected. Alright, things are looking good. Alright, we've automated another system, so basically when this little catchment area is empty, our fluid dump will turn on and we will have access to clean water over here until it reaches a certain point, which is 0.2 meters. As you can see, it's at 0.8, so we'll see what a good level is. And we might have to adjust it. It seems like we will, but let's wait and see until this thing fills up. Obviously, this is it's a large use of water, so we'll have to wait and see if this is viable. But it does keep things healthy, which is what we want. Alright, we're approaching at the end of the bad tide, so we should see these turn on as soon as this sensor starts working. And yeah, we'll have a look and see how this all works out. Alright, cycle 13 begins and the bad tide has ended. Alright, there we go. Automation is nice, I must admit. I was quick to judge them because of the sluice gate scandal, but it seems it's working quite well. We'll take advantage of this. Now this turns off as soon as this water is now reached a certain level, aka above 0.2. So we're pretty happy with the system. We've automated it, which is quite nice. I don't know if there's a contamination sensor for ground yet. That would be quite interesting. So for example, if the ground is contaminated, will the farmers still work? Now, how do we check that? I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. And see this. We have a contamination sensor for water, but we don't have one for land, which is something we might have to address in the future. Right, we also seem to have a new automation system over here with our waterfall, so this is working quite well. And of course, if we had to switch this off, nothing happens. Okay, I have to fix this. Let's see, great waterfall. Maybe that. I don't know. Okay, we'll have to figure this out. It seems like it's not working right now. I might need a sensor to connect it to. Unless this is something we have to do with a relay, which would make more sense in my mind. Alright, we'll build that out and see how we can get this system to work. Alright, cycle 13, day 4. Another drought is on its way. And hey, we are prepared and ready. We have our second big water catchment area fulfilled. And food is through the roof. Again, it is mostly berries for now, but we will fix that in the future. And then we are trying to automate the system where we basically allow good water to go through the waterfall system. And then we will have to find a way to make sure that it goes through here without flooding this plane. So that's why we have another fill valve over here, which we'll have to automate with another sensor system, so that way we can, of course, control the flow. All right, we've managed to fix the system, the automated system here on our waterfall sector. So pretty much we have the fill valve connected to the relay, and the relay is on a NOT function, and then it is linked to the the depth sensor 1, which is at 2.8 meters. So pretty much what happens is that while we're at this level, this fill valve will release water, which will then obviously fill up the section. But what happens if we bring it lower? Stops. So that is good for basically preserving the water flow, the water levels in the sector. But as soon as we're, in a good stance, we can set that at 2.8. And yeah, it allows water to flow out, which is quite nice. Yeah, it's layered, and I think people who don't want to bother with this won't, and it'll just avoid creating complex systems, but it is cool. And hey, I am enjoying utilizing these automations. But we are making good headway. We have about 2 days left in the good season, and we're about to have another drought. We are working on a levee system with a fill valve over here, so we can let some of this good water out when it does overflow. Of course, we'll get to that and automation of this at a later stage, but for now we're just gonna let our beavers build this out. All right, the drought has started, and it is a 21-day drought, so a very, very long drought for us. And what we are going to be doing is starting our development of our industrial zone in this section. So for that, we are going to first build an explosives factory, which I see is also a part of the fireworks system, which is quite cool. That's also an automation feature, so perhaps we can do like a fireworks system that triggers once a bad tide or drought has ended. That'd be quite cool and interesting. But for now, what we are going to do is build a explosives factory over here. We will try keep the central column open so that we can, of course, tunnel through and blast our way through there. Of course, we will need to unlock dynamite, so let's just do that over here. Yeah, try create a system that works. So we'll do probably a good idea to have anyway, we'll just plonk one down, and then hey, we've unlocked that. Right, so that is explosives factory and dynamite. Now for the tunnel, we just need extract. So the next big step in our research evolution is the centrifuge, which does take about 200 horsepower to run, and of course 600 science. So we're about 400 off. What we can do, of course, is these have not switched off. They should be switching off. Alright, more testing and iteration. Alright, some time has passed and we're in cycle 13, day 24. We have managed to complete our system over here, where we are blocking off any excess bad water that does flow out of these channels. We have set up 3 deep bad water pumps. Keep getting that mixed up. And we're just waiting on a little bit more scrap metal to complete the depth sensor here, which will then link to these deep bad water pumps and pretty much turn off when no bad water is detected. And we might have to change this to a contamination sensor maybe. I think depth sensor is the correct sensor to use. All the while we do have a farmhouse here, and we are expanding our mobility around the map. So we are installing some tubeway stations. So we have one down here and one up here. And what we are going to do is have a vertical system that goes sort of down this pathway and then straight down through to the bat cave, which we have yet to obviously dig through. And then, of course, down here to our bad water collection station, just to make it a bit quicker, because obviously stairs do take a while. As you can see, things just take a little bit too long. So this is going to help us with quickly, traversing the map. And this is just the start. Of course, we are going to be putting these on every entrance here, and obviously have corresponding, I guess, production chains in those zones. And we might play with the district management tool and create new district centers. That is a whole other ball game, but we'll try something new. All right, we're coming to the end of our drought season, and we have about a third of the day left, and we are finishing up some odds and ends here. And of course, we are gathering some metal on this side, but hey, we have our bad water pump automation set up, so this should trigger on once we get some bad water here, so that we can actually start collecting it for demolition purposes. And then what we are going to be doing is perhaps demolishing or creating deeper ravines here, so that we can start planting crops all year round. But hey, the drought has ended. Cycle 14 begins. Now we should see these turn on if I have fixed them. Contamination of 0. It is not working. So I'll have to play with this maybe, and no, not it. Pass through. So clearly we got to figure out. Yes, so not works to turn it on, but it doesn't turn it off, which is a problem. So I have to figure out a solution for that in the long term. Unless we do 2 contamination sensors, we'll perhaps do another one. So this one is linked to this one, I believe. Yeah. All right. So we need another one over here linked to good water. That on high priority. Switch this over to... switch this over to 4. Must be contamination sensor 4. And I guess we'll switch that around. Right, less than 100% good water. It will turn off. Leave. Let's hope. Okay, but hey, yeah, day 2, cycle 14. And our is working. We've switched on these bad water pumps with our new automation, but we just don't have the workers available, so that is a setback. Now we are going to experience some flooding, unfortunately, so we have to link. We have a drought approaching, but we have to link this fill valve to this good waterfall relay. We should see maybe there's a bit more tweaking involved here, because I feel like we're going to struggle if we don't get this right. Anyway, while we watch everything flood here, let's take a look. So if we take the water view off, we'll fix this in a second, but basically we've built a road network all the way up here, up here, and we have about 3,000 science available to us to collect. Then next to that there is another 800. But this map maker is quite sneaky, because if we go down a couple levels, we'll see a unstable core. I don't know when this pops off, but that is very sneaky. And yeah, obviously I'm going to take this now as soon as I can. Yeah, that is obviously a very sneaky way of you know, incentivizing you to get this relic a lot sooner than you would otherwise. Right, but yeah, there is also something below that though. I forgot to mention. There is a bad water source, so we actually have to get here soon, because if we don't, it will flood this area and then come all the way back this way and then flood this area. So it's in our best interest to get to this point, get these relics, and then seal this section off. So that is what we're currently doing. Alright, the drought has started, so this is cycle 14, day 6. And hey, we have managed to drain away the system. It seems like you just have to put on... So, top section here has to be... The indicator has to be to the right, and then on the bottom has to be to the left. So off is unlimited, and on is target height 0.00 meters, and that does allow water to flow out. Now... we might have to create a system where we can link it to this gate where pretty much it turns off when that closes. It is currently linked, so we'll have to see once this stops if it turns off. But we'll let time run a bit and then see if that does actually work. Alright, we're here at the relic and we are currently dismantling it so that we can get some more science. That will be 3,000 science, which is pretty good. And then another 800 thereafter. And I was thinking maybe we convert this area into a power generation system, because that worked so well for us last time. I think we might do it again. And we have plenty of space here, and it's pretty much all open already. So all we have to do is just neaten up a bit, you know, take some of these corners out. And luckily it's only a one high block system, so be quite easy to demolish and then make this into a powerful power generation system. And then what we can do is just bring the power right to the edge of the map and then all the way across to our bat cave. Alright, so we've unlocked the centrifuge by finding that relic earlier, and that provided us with quite a lot of science. Now what we are going to do is create some tunnels. Of course, we don't have the resources to build these out yet, but we can still plan out the idea. We are going to go with a 2-wide tunnel system. And pretty much, I think one is going to be for transportation with the tubeways. And then the other could be laying down power. Of course, you need one to do the other, which makes life a little easier, so we are going to do it that way. And yeah, so we'll obviously have to get this to be functional, and we are waiting for someone to come down here and fix these birch trees or take them out. There we go. And then we're going to be adding in, when they have finished that, a tubeway station here so we can get in and out of the zone. I mean, I guess we could do it like that. We do need a way to obviously access these points. Right, we'll do something like that. Actually, wait, hold on. That's probably not going to work. Kind of a conundrum. Let's move this guy, because we cannot really work with him there. We'll shift him out to this side, create a walkway, pathway this way. And we'll do a tube station like so. It'll connect over there. And then we'll have to just break that up. Yeah, we'll have to do this. Eventually we can, of course, just directly plug into the way station and then work from there. And then another way to do it is to, of course, a platform where we can get stairs and just sort of walk over these. It will mean having to destroy this pathway to build some stairs, but we'll get to that at a later stage. Unless we... let's just prioritize that right now. Once they've built that, we'll destroy this path, add in another staircase, and then pretty much have access to this zone. And then have no worries using these tunnels. Yeah, we would like to get the centrifuge up and running as soon as possible. Okay, before that, of course, we do need to demolish all of these blockages to actually get there. So let's take a look at our assigned priorities. There's nothing up here except for the tubeways, which is at normal priority. And we've managed to build the tubeway or blueprint it out all the way to our, I guess, power generation zone that we want to obviously convert. And what we are doing is now laying in dynamite, singular dynamite, so that we can, of course, fix everything here and make it look nice and neat and squared up. And then we are going to do a back and forth system with levees to sort of create a system that works well with bad water flow. Now we could always add in an aquifer here too, just to, I guess, create infinite power with bad water and a aquifer. That's quite interesting. I don't know what the flow rate will be, but that will be quite cool. Alright, the drought has ended, so cycle 15 has begun. And hey, our current resources are sitting at 1900 water, 2000 food, and about 1200 science. And we have reached about 50 beavers with 5 young adults. We're about to finish up our, I guess, levee system over here to prevent any bad water mixing with our, I guess, arable zone over here. I don't know when this unstable core will blow, but it will, at least we will be protected, and hopefully not have to deal with any drama relating to contamination. Yep, and the next step, of course, is to automate and create faster networks for us to move around. So what we are doing is adding tubeway stations basically cross gaps and into the central ring. This is what I would like to do, create a nice network of tubeways. So we're going to be doing a tubeway at every junction. So this is a junction, 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 and then basically connecting everything and hopefully mining out all of these ruins. The first things first, we of course have to build out the tubeways, so we'll do so. Just try to create a system that works for us. And I guess we could do it in the center, but it's a bit low. I do want to get down here. I think for now we do something like that. And then that. And that. Alright, so what we do need to do is create a system where we can go down. And actually start getting to these ruins. Right. I think that's good. Once that's all built, we'll of course then start adding in and accessing these areas. But for now, we do need to, of course, block it off. So what we'll do is take away the water view, then build out some levees over here. We want to try to drain this out. Over time, it will be drained, so we'll just add in those levees. Of course, do something like that. Now, the bad water here is still flowing in, so that's something we do need to address too. Of course, we'll get to that from this side, way around. We are saving up for a bad water discharge cap. It's about 4,000 science, and that's the one we want to cap, because it is basically polluting everything in this inner ring. And that's what we want to try and prevent. Alright, we've just had a breather, and then next moment we have another drought on its way. But hey, we almost have the centrifuge ready. We are starting to, I guess, harvest bad water. We can start producing dynamite, which will be very helpful. Sorry, not dynamite, extract, which will be very helpful for us to, of course, do these tunnels and any other explosive needs we may have in the future. All right, we are going to, of course, add in a medium tank next to this because we do need to have it set to extract so we can actually store some extract in here and possibly have maybe the two. I think we'll just do that. We'll just do this. Yeah. All right, we'll have 3, so that's nice and neat. All right, so these obviously need to be built and occupied quite quickly. And then we will set at least one of these storage units up so that we can at least access that. There we go. We have 2 beavers who are unemployed, so I'll just change them out. All right, we should be finished. Yes, we're finished over here. So now we're going to be focusing on the centrifuge, dynamite, and basically controlling the map fully. All right, guys, I think that we're going to leave it there for today. That was our part 1 of this Atlantis series. And hey, hope you all enjoyed. I thank you again for joining in. Of course, I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.